What's up, Smithville? Kristen Meriwether, your friendly neighborhood publisher. I know the 15% tax increase and taking on $3 million in new debt has angered a lot of residents. And it's a valid concern, especially since we'd already taken on $5 million in debt over the last 4 years. But this time around, the council didn't just take out a tax note and hope property values go up next year. This year, the council focused on the revenue side as well and decided to make investments in economic development in hopes of expanding the tax base and boosting tax collections. While the council has largely agreed on the need for more economic development, the mechanism and how much to invest, that's been up for debate all year. But after months of discussion, we finally got a decision at Wednesday's budget hearing. Councilmember Mitch Jameson opened that meeting talking about a budget pattern he's seen where the city is treating debt as revenue, something he said is not sustainable.
Our solution is every year we come in here and generally we raise the property taxes to the maximum amount allowed by law without triggering an election. And every 2 to 3 years we borrow another couple of $3 million. This is the cycle that we're in. We must break free of that.
Jameson has been pushing a $250,000 investment in economic development for much of this year as his solution for getting out of the cycle. Councilmember Brandon Dunham has supported the economic development investment but had been non-committal about the amount. He said he's seen the pattern Councilmember Jameson described and believes if the city is going to keep spending like it's growing, it needs to commit to growth.
This is an inflection point for Smithville, not just about the budget, but about our future. Are we going to keep spending like a city that's growing rapidly when we're not? Or are we going to be disciplined, smart, and intentional, investing in economic development, infrastructure, and the things that will actually secure Smithville's long-term prosperity? That's the choice before us.
Councilmember Cathy Meek had not supported expanding the economic development department earlier in the year, but after months of debate, she finally got on board.
But when you look around this city and you see what's not happening on Main Street, there are no relationships built with those property owners, no incentive to get them to revitalize Main Street. We've been hearing that for years. Something different does have to happen there. And we don't need an assistant. We need a full-time, dedicated economic development person to get ahead of this curve. We're right there.
Councilmember Jenkins has warmed up to the idea of expanding economic development in recent months, but had never supported a $250,000 investment. At July's budget hearing, he proposed creating an economic development corporation as a way to fund the expansion. Instead of being funded from the budget, an EDC, which would require voter approval, would be funded through a portion of the sales tax revenue, providing a permanent and reliable revenue stream.
It's a permanent way for us to do the industrial development along with commercial and everything else. It will also lead to being able to do the Main Street that you want, because you have an EDC. So you're going to be able to do the Main Street you want. But that has to go to the people. I think it should be on the May election.
So the council was given 3 options. Option 1, invest $250,000 in the budget for a full-time economic development professional. And that would cover a salary of about $130,000 to $150,000, a potential moving package, and money for marketing materials. Option number 2, invest $100,000 in the budget to hire a short-term consultant. Joe Newman, who ran the Bastrop and Elgin EDCs in the early and middle 2000s, was a name floated to fill the role. And option number 3, create an economic development corporation. This would require voter approval, and residents would have to decide how much sales tax revenue to take to fund the EDC. Councilmember Jenkins supported the EDC idea, saying he preferred the dedicated funding source instead of relying on general fund revenue each year, and he liked that it could quiet the allegations of backroom deals.
It ends all this. You're doing, I'm sorry, Robert, that we have always been doing backroom deals, because this is going to be done by a board, and that's going to be transparent and out in the open. And to me, that makes a big difference about what would be done.
But using sales tax revenue as a funding source is what lost a lot of support for the EDC on the dais. The funding would come from up to 0.5% of the sales tax revenue, which means that revenue the city has been relying on would have to be moved to the EDC. It's no secret the city has a revenue problem. They have to transfer $1.1 million from the utility fund every year just to balance the budget. And no one had a great answer about how, in the immediate future, that revenue loss would be covered.
I think that this is almost a conversation of semantics, where we have our general fund budget. What we are discussing is lowering expenses and not lowering revenue. If we have an EDC, we're lowering revenue, shifting that revenue to a different fund.
The preliminary budget at Wednesday's meeting only had $100,000 for economic development, and since the council opted to not make any cuts, the full $250,000 simply wasn't there. So the council came up with a compromise. Councilmember Dunham suggested hiring Joe Newman for $100,000 for 1 year, and then funding the economic development position for 6 months, or $75,000. The council would still be responsible for finding the full $250,000 in next year's budget. But the compromise allows the city to hit the ground running with Mr. Newman in October, and potentially using him to help hire someone, and allows us to make the hire within 6 months. Ideally, Mr. Newman can help get some of the $50 to $75 million in approved projects off the ground and in the tax coffers, and get the Smithville Industrial Park generating some tax revenue in that first year. Because without additional revenue, funding the new position for next year may be a bigger challenge than it was this year. We'll see you next time, Smithville.